Hey, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we're talking about where should you sit, how should you sit when riding gaited horses. It's not as simple as it sounds, and it's something that get asked about a lot because there's so many misconceptions. You see people riding leaning way back with their legs forward. You see them more upright when they're riding sometimes in shows. Sometimes you see them hunched over when they're showing and competing. What is the right way, and how do you achieve that? Great questions, and I will do my very best to give you my thoughts and opinions. Let me say first that when you look at the early breeds, let's just pick Tennessee Walkers, they were bred to be smooth so that people or owners of plantations could ride their horses in comfort where they couldn't take carriages. So check their plantation out, ride in comfort. So one of the reasons many of us have gaited horses is because it is more comfortable. And I'm going to be very frank, many of my clients are women over 40 years of age, and some things don't stretch and move quite as well. So as I begin to tell you the more ideal rider position, if this is a position that is painful for you, don't do it. My goal is not for you to hurt yourself by trying to conform to a stiff position. My goal is to educate people to what the correct is and for you to get as close as you can within your physical limitations. Now, some limitations can be improved by stretching. I ride in a dressage saddle, and I remember riding in it early on and how it really brought my legs underneath me, and it was a really big stretch for my hips. I could really feel it, and it took quite a few rides and stretching before I was more relaxed and comfortable, because relaxation and the ability to feel comfortable and relaxed in the saddle is part of what allows you to be a good rider. Okay. Pamela says, love what you do, Ivy. Thank you so much. Phyllis says, hello. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining. So, I have a few photos. Now, if you Google gaited rider, Tennessee Walking Horse Show, Tennessee Walking Horse Trail, Missouri Foxtrotter, Rocky Mountain, you will see a variety of positions. Some look very upright. I will say that a lot of the gaited horse shows, they're wearing longer coats, so you really can't see quite how they're sitting on the horse, but you can see their leg position. And I'm going to show you a few incorrect ones. Now, the reason, and I'm going to show you correct. The reason I want to show you incorrect is because these kinds of photos are passed around, or decals that you see people sitting a certain way, and they're like, oh, but I was told that you sit back. So let's go through the misconception. The common misconception is that you lean back to get them to gait and put your heels forward. Now, there's varying degrees of how far forward and how much you lean back. Some, like racking horses, lean very far back and put their legs very far forward. Most of you are not going to be this extreme, but you might be taught that this is the correct way to ride. One reason this is not a good way is because when you lean so far back, and if you look at these photos, you will see the reason this is especially bad is because you're sitting on the horse's lower back, the lumbar, close to their hip joint. And this is not meant to bear weight. The best place to sit on the horse for their ability to carry weight is closer up to the withers. When you sit on their lower back, they have much less ability to support the weight of a rider, no matter how much or how little that weight is, if you have a skinny rider or a heavier rider. The best place is to sit up and forward. Also, the best for the rider's balance is, generally speaking, to have a more upright seat, not hollow-backed and throwing your shoulders back, rather filling in your lower back so that you have a straight, flat back with your legs underneath you. And we'll talk about that more as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the wrong rider positions. So these are a variety of breeds, and I want to go ahead and go back to this first one. So here we see the rider's legs very far forward. I believe this is a racking horse, but it doesn't matter what breed, it's the same. So you can see the rider is sitting in the back of the seat, and the legs are very far forward. This is not a balanced position, and it is putting way too much weight on the horse's lower spine, which can very easily lead to injury. Here is a rocky mountain, and you can see her legs are in front. Now, they're not as in front as the other rider, and she isn't sitting like all the way back, but she's not sitting up and straight. And it doesn't matter how well the horse is gaiting, if you are in the wrong position that is, damaging for the horse, it's not a good thing. Also, people will tell you that you have to sit this way to get gait, but generally speaking, seat alone will not influence gait if there's a lot of other problems. Here's another horse. I believe this one is a foxtrotter. A lot of the foxtrotters you'll see, if they're not doing showing, you'll see a more correct seat. This is a little bit more Western. You can see the rider's legs are farther forward, but she's not, if you look, the horse is a shorter back, and she's not sitting on the lower back. She's sitting, the saddle is more forward, which is a good thing, but her legs are still forward, and we're going to talk about why that's not a good thing in a minute. Here, I don't remember which breed of gaited horse this is, but here's a gaited horse, and the rider is not sitting particularly far back, but you can see those legs are very far forward. And again, this is not what we want. Now, they're not leaning back. You can see they're sitting upright, which is a good thing. And then here again, I believe this is a Rocky, but I'm not 100% sure. And you can see how far forward this rider's legs are, and that they are leaning back. And you can't see because of the coats, which I don't like. I think it gives you a false sense of where the rider's sitting, and a false sense of how bumpy or smooth the gait can be. With them sitting that far back, you can't quite see. They look like they're sitting on the horse's spine, on the lower back, which you don't want them to sit there. And then here's another one. I believe this is a racker or a walker. I don't remember exactly. And you can see the rider's legs are farther forward, and they're leaning back just a little bit, but they are sitting in the back of the saddle. Instead of sitting forward, they're putting that weight toward the back or the horse's lower spine, which is not meant to carry that. And here's another one, Tennessee walking horse, which I was trying to avoid the stacks, but avoid the stacks. Just look at how the rider is hunched forward. You'll see that even in foxtrotter shows. So it's very important to be aware that even in trail rides, you're very common to see people sitting way back, leaning way back and telling you to ride this way. And so I've had a lot of people, in dressage riders and other riders, contact me. They're like, I'm so confused. I've never been taught to ride this way. I would say that leaning back and putting your legs forward is incorrect. Now, that said, some saddles are designed, most saddles today, whether they're gaited or Western, are designed to put your legs farther forward. This is not thinking about the horse, it's thinking about the comfort of the rider. As you get older, you get less mobility through the hips, and sometimes having your legs forward can feel better. And if it does for you, try not to have them too far forward. Let's look at good rider position. In this case, what we're looking for is shoulders that are relaxed. If you notice and you look at that spine, notice how the lower spine isn't hollowed out. They're not arching their back. We don't want that. If you look, you want to see a straight line down, perpendicular to the ground, up and down, line from the rider's ear to their shoulder to their hip or pelvic bone, basically right through there when they're sitting, and then down through the heel. Now, in this picture, you can see how they show that the legs should be able to move forward and back. When your horse is gaiting or cantering, there's always some movement of your legs forward and back as the horse moves, and that's okay. But when you stick your legs far forward, you tend to brace, and you're more likely to have some pain. Also, we want to look at the length of your stirrups as a cause for pain or not pain, and the kind of stirrups you have. Maybe just having your legs forward won't fix it, but if you can have, the right kind of stirrups that swing and move, you'll be more comfortable. Let me take a look and see if there's any questions. Amy says, let's see, we got some. Amy says, I love my Tennessee walking horse. I'd love to improve him. Thanks for doing these videos. You're very welcome, Amy. Roger and Loretta says, I ride gaited mules. Do you feel they should be ridden differently than a gaited horse? Not ridden differently, absolutely not. I've ridden gaited mules as well, and while they need to be trained differently because they are a mule, the riding part is the same. Different saddles, and you have different gear on them to keep the saddle from sliding, but you ride upright. David said, your advice about my horse is working well. Wonderful. That's excellent. I'm so glad to hear that, David. You just keep me posted. Megan says, that's why I got rid of my Western saddle. I hated having my legs out in front of me. You'll find a lot of gaited saddles and a lot of Western saddles. Not all, but many, many, many will put your legs out in front, and I hate it. So people will say, well, what do you think about this saddle? I'm like, well, they put your legs out in front as a general rule, and I don't like it. Ruby says, that's why I ride my Tennessee walking horse in a dressage saddle. Love your advice. You are so welcome. I personally ride mostly in a dressage saddle. I also ride in a freeform treeless. That's more of a dressage saddle, putting my legs underneath me. Now, there's all kinds of different saddles, and I want people to be comfortable in whatever saddle they're riding in. That is important. But be aware that the more upright position is correct. That leaning back and pulling on them, I'm not quite sure where it came from, but it is hard on horses. Period. If it's comfortable for you, it doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily lean back a little bit, but the goal is to have horses that are comfortable and not going to get injured. And that leaning far back, whether you're trail riding or showing, is not necessarily, it's not good. It's not good for their back or their body. Let's talk about why legs underneath you matters. One of the big reasons is balance. If your horse were to spook out from underneath you, a lot of people like to have the idea, so look at your position, and if the horse were to suddenly disappear and you were suddenly to hit the ground in the position you're in, would you be standing or would you fall over? Now, when you compare it to rider positions in here, like this, we can, let's go back to the beginning. Here we go. Like this one, stop that. So like this rider, if the horse were to suddenly disappear and they were to be standing on the ground, their weight is farther back. They'd fall over. Pretty much all of these would. This rider, her legs very far forward, she would just fall over on her butt. Same thing, while this rider looks very nice and relaxed and her legs aren't as far forward, she would fall over, which means your center of balance is already wonky because you're leaning back, not upright. Now, upright doesn't mean sitting directly on your lady bits, as it were, but actually to have your seat bone tucked a little bit, to have your body, your lower back strong but relaxed. But it doesn't mean having those legs forward and having you lean back. Same thing here. Even in this case where the rider's upper body is straight and not leaning back, her legs are stuck far forward out. And so it gives you a little bit of an idea. Let's see. No other comments right now. So I just want to do a quick video because I had some people asking questions about should you lean back, lean forward, upright, and for people from dressage backgrounds or horsemanship backgrounds, you know, that leaning back quite that much with your legs forward, they're like, how is that natural? Same thing like about the mules. People sometimes think that gaited horses are a different kind of horse, and so you have to sit differently. But that's not true at all. Yes, they're a different breed, but they are a horse. The same things that are true for them are true for all the other horses. When I talk about head down, that's true for Arabians and standardbreds and Morgans and thoroughbreds and quarter horses. When I see quarter horses with their head up in the air, it's a problem. That means they're hollowing their back and they're going to have joint problems just like gaited horses. Same thing for mules. When their head's up in the air or they're doing the things that people teach gaited horses to do, it's a problem because they are still horses and these things still affect them just the way it affects other horses. So head down, I worked with I think it was a saddlebred Arabian cross who ended up not gaiting. He was so high-headed. The very first thing I did, just like I did with all the gaited horses, is to work on that head down. Work on getting the horse to soften and be relaxed and stretch forward and down. And that horse's trot became amazing and he became relaxed and his speed became controllable. All these things change when you think about gaited horses as horses. So if you have a dressage background, do dressage with your gaited horses and know that the gait adds a little bit of an extra element. Robin says, I have had sideways spooks when leaning back and I fell off several times. Now that I'm riding more forward with seat bones feeling under me and my legs left forward, he has done similar sideways spooks and I sit them without falling. What an amazing testimony, Robin. Thank you for that comment. Now, I can tell you I've ridden lots of horses that do little spooks or big spooks, and I mean, it's been a long time since I've come off from a spook. And the thing is, you try to stay relaxed and balanced, and There's links in the descriptions to some exercises that you can do to be a better rider, and I have a DVD about it too, but there's a free video on there. Ginger says, thank you for this video. I found that my Pasifino gaits best when she's comfortable and relaxed. I can certainly see how my position on her back makes a big difference in her comfort level. That's a great comment, Ginger. Thank you so much for that. And the idea is we want the horse to be as relaxed and comfortable as possible. And if you just always say, oh, always lean back, that may not be your horse's most comfortable position. And generally speaking, it will not be because their back is not meant to bear weight there. Linda says, I have an older Tennessee walking horse that used to show. He cues a gait when I get into a leaning back position. Hard to get him to gait without it. Well, Linda, here's just a thought for you. So let's say you cue him to gait and you lean back. Great, okay? Now he's gaiting. So now start to lean forward a little bit. If he maintains that gait a little bit, stop and praise. And begin teaching him a new normal. Don't settle for him just gaiting when you lean back. Start to sit up just a little bit at a time and praise him when he holds it just a few steps. Diana says, great video, thanks. Sue says, have I seen the Pirelli Hybrid Cruiser? That's what I ride and I think the seat is good. Or does that position me wrong? Hold on a sec. I have no idea what this is. I'll look it up quickly to see the Hybrid Cruiser. I'm just looking to see how it puts the rider. It looks like, so I'm not seeing people riding and I just see the saddle. It looks like the stirrups are set back far enough to help the rider depending on the seat size. So here's a way to tell, and I believe I have this. I don't know if I took a video of this or not. One thing I will say is that you can test. So put your saddle on your horse. Take a pencil or a water bottle and put it on the saddle so it can roll back and forth. You're facing the horse's back, right? The saddle's on, you're facing sideways, and put a pencil or a pen, something round so that you see where the middle is, where it rests. So take that. Your stirrups, where they hang, should be about 4 inches in front of that. No more, or even closer is better, because you want the stirrups to hang underneath you a little bit. Not perfectly, not right underneath that area, but if they're more than 4 inches in front, they're going to put your legs in a far forward position. Let me see. I know they've got the saddle. I'm trying to find a video of a Pirelli person actually riding with it, so I can't really tell you. I don't have a good answer to that question about how that one makes you sit, because I have never sat in one, I don't think. Zach says, could I touch base briefly on girth placement? With shorter backed gaited horses, is it okay to have it right behind the front legs? I'm tempted to move things back, but worry I'll be out of position. So this is why certain saddles are better. So where you put the girth matters, because every horse is built differently. Even if they're short back or long backed, where their girth is a little bit different. Saddles should generally be farther forward than most people put them, because if they're too far back, then what happens is you're sitting on the horse's lower back. So what you need is a saddle that lets you keep the saddle in one place on the horse, but you move the girth to different positions. So it's called like a 3/4 rig or center fire. So if you have straps that go from the girth to the cinch to the rear, it's not a rear cinch because it's designed to be a girthing system. So you can put the cinch where you need it. And then you can have your saddle forward and bring the girth back. Dressage saddles also let you do this. I don't know that Aussie saddles do. They might. Different saddles let you put the girth in different positions because it is different for horses. That is a really good question though. Sandy says, I've been following you for a while now, but I haven't had a horse until recently. I'm getting a beautiful black and white spotted saddle horse the middle of this month. Congratulations! That's wonderful. I've only ridden one Tennessee walking horse once, and I loved it. Thank you for your videos and DVD. I know she will need work, but I'm looking forward to it. Good job. You keep us posted. Amy says, I ride in an IMIS. It sits you more forward. I tend to ride more so on my pelvis. Yeah. Amy, I know the saddle from the IMIS usually sits farther forward on the horse, which I like. I'm not a big fan of them because she, on her website, says that she puts your legs more in front of you. So you could be a rider that's really used to having your legs under you, and it's fine, and that's excellent. Elizabeth said, I heard from so many old-time gaited people that the gaited horse needs to lean into the bit. BS. BS. I knew that had to be incorrect. Good for you. Just not logical. The same old advice about leaning back instead of sitting balanced just didn't make sense either. Sure appreciate you addressing these old wives' tales. Good for you to be skeptical. Especially when you started out your comment with, I've heard from so many old-time gaited people. It's not that old-time gaited people don't know or don't have valuable knowledge, but they come from one way. Like, this is always the way we've done it. This is how we have to. And they don't look at the horse's overall health, and they're not looking at more correct, more gentle ways. They don't have to lean into the bit. I don't even know where that came from. Horses can gait on a loose rein. David said, what do I think of the Imus Comfort bit? I just ordered one of the second generation to try. So Imus has two bits. They have their shanked bit, and then they have their little D-ring training bit. Their shanked bit, I have known one or two horses that love it, but I really don't like it. I find it clunky, and it's a very heavy bit. So I generally, when people show up with that bit or with the Robart that looks very similar, we almost always change it out for the Mcgregor Releasing Bit, because while that bit is still metal and it's still there, it balances so much better. If you've been to any of my clinics, you'll see how it just makes a big difference. So I am not a fan of the Imus bit, and I think Comfort bit, by putting Comfort in there is, I should just put Comfort in all of my training devices, because it'll probably sell more, because people will go, oh, this is comfortable for the horse. Well, the horse is the horse is the thing, the animal that determines whether it's comfortable or not people. Same thing for the Mcgregor Releasing Bit. Horses sometimes love it, and sometimes they don't, and we take it out, and we don't use it. The horse needs to determine whether it's good for them. Kimberly says, I'm having problem with saddle pushing me forward, which I think throws us off balance. I'm riding in a Cuda. I probably have ridden in a Cuda, but I cannot remember what they're like. If the saddle is pushing you forward, then it's a problem, and you're right. It is throwing you off balance. It could be a sizing issue. It could be where the stirrups are, and it could be a you issue. So you can take a video of yourself riding if you haven't already and see where you're at. Sue said she PM'd me a photo of the hybrid cruiser. So the trick with a photo is, let's see, did you send? So you sent a photo of it. It looks, generally speaking, Sue, like your legs are underneath you. So I don't know anything about the saddle. Position-wise, it doesn't look bad. Your legs look a tiny bit forward, but not in any way that concerns me. You are sitting toward the back of the saddle, which to me looks like, so I can't show it to everybody right now. So looking at the picture, just because I want to bring it up, I want you to look at that picture yourself, Sue, and I want you to look at the back of the saddle. And by back, I mean the back part of the weight-bearing part. And it is sticking past the safety area of where the horse can safely bear weight, that rib there. We want to make sure that the saddle sits farther forward enough, and the rider sits forward enough, and the tree is short enough that we are not sitting toward the back of those ribs. Liz says, I'm having a huge problem finding a saddle for my walker. She's very short back and very wide at the withers. That is tough. You could be looking at some dressage type saddles or some treeless saddles that are custom built and shorter. I was reading an article that said that we have a lot of short-backed horses because we were trying to develop more uphill horses, and so we kept developing shorter and shorter backs, which is not bad, except there's no offense intended at all. As we have bigger and bigger riders, they need longer and longer seats to be comfortable in the saddle, which is important. And so we don't want horses that have too long backs, but if they're too short, we cannot effectively ride them. Megan says, I have an Imus shanked, and I've been wanting to find something else. Can you post a link to the one you mentioned, or just show it in the description later? Yes, I will do that. I can post it now and in the description. So the bit that I recommend that's a shanked bit, I have a video, and it's the Mcgregor Releasing Bit, which I will share here. I can find it. There we go. So I'm going to share the link to the video here, and then in the description I'll post the link. to where you can buy it on my website. So there you go. There's that. Kelly says, no, come on, go back. Kelly says, because she was at a clinic in New Hampshire we did in July. She said the Mcgregor bit worked so well for Bodhi at the clinic. Yeah, he relaxed really well in it. Sue says, do I have the saddle placed too far forward? Sue, from the picture, I wouldn't have said that your saddle was too far forward, but I'm not looking at it. It doesn't look too far forward to me in that one picture, which is always hard to say. Yeah, okay, that's all the comments right now. And I'll put the link in the description. So that everybody can see it. Great questions, everybody. Let me see. Oh, Sue says, did you meant too far back? I'm not sure it's too far back. I would need to see more photos, see you place it on the horse, see where their shoulder is for that to tell me. So sorry about that. I can't be more helpful for that. Rhonda says, can you explain why a lighter bit versus a heavier bit? Well, it's not just about weight. It's also about balance, how the bit balances in the horse's mouth, because there's an art to it. And the Imus Comfort bit, it doesn't look nice in the horse's mouth. It doesn't seem to balance well. You don't see horses being soft and light and dropping their head in it. The Mcgregor bit was literally designed to help the horses drop their head and tuck their nose. Literally, that was what it was designed for, to feel good in their mouth when they softened on a loose rein. And that's one of the big reasons I use it. Kelly says, do you ever come to Connecticut? I would love to go to one of your clinics. So I've never been to Connecticut. We just did a clinic in New Hampshire. Next year we will do a clinic in New Hampshire, possibly Maine and Pennsylvania, all in the same trip. Right now, I haven't had too much interest from Connecticut, so you'd probably have to travel a little bit. Rhonda says, many of the spade bits are heavier but well-balanced. Talking about the spade, yes. So Rhonda, it's an excellent point. If you study spade bits, which I've done some, they were supposed to be so well-balanced in the horse's mouth, the horse would carry their head in a beautiful position and you hardly touch the reins. You don't pull on them. The way many riders are taught, and we're just talking about it, gaited horses, they teach you that you need to pull on the reins. So a spade bit is the worst thing you can do, because a horse in a spade bit is supposed to be so light you barely have to even touch the reins. Where everything we're taught with the gaited horses is that we need to have contact, which of course is not what I teach. I teach that you can have your gaited horse and not have to have that contact. So anyway, just want to make that clear. So let me know if anybody has any other questions before we end this session. Thanks so much for logging in. We had quite a few people on there today and some very good questions. And hopefully I'll be able to do another live video next week. We'll see. I'm about to leave for Virginia for another clinic in Crockett, Virginia. So I'll be doing that. Parker and I will be traveling for that. So watch for some live videos from there if we have good signal or Wi-Fi. Never know until we get there. And we'll also try to, share some of those training videos from that clinic on the private training group. Private training group, if you join right now, it's $100, $99, one-time fee, you're in for life. And there's hours and hours and hours of clinic videos, as well as just other clicker training videos that I share and post there. Yeah, okay, so anyway, hope everybody has a good week. Make sure I didn't miss any last comments. You're welcome, everybody. Have a good week. Have a great ride. Stay cool where it's still hot. And I will see you guys next time. You got this.